Her parents never expected it to come to this. They had tried everything: therapy, strict rules, and countless talks about her future. But their daughter Lily was drifting further and further away. The rebellious streak that started in her teenage years had only grown worse as she got older. Grades were slipping, she was staying out late, and worse, she had started hanging around with people who were bad influences. It was like she didn't care anymore. They had watched helplessly as their once bright, joyful daughter seemed to fade into someone they hardly recognized. Desperate, with nowhere else to turn, they made the hardest decision of their lives. They sent her away to a retreat, a place where they hoped she'd find some guidance, some sense of peace, and maybe, just maybe, the spark of the daughter they once knew. But what happened next was nothing like they had imagined. The retreat was supposed to be the answer to all their prayers. Tucked away in the mountains, far from distractions, the hope was that Lily would reconnect with herself and gain some clarity about her life. It was a serene place, surrounded by nature's beauty, a place for healing and reflection. It sounded perfect in theory, but the truth was far more complex. Her parents believed they were doing the right thing. They thought that with time away, Lily would have a breakthrough, a realization about her behavior, about her life, and what she wanted for her future. But what unfolded during those days would leave them stunned, questioning everything they knew about their daughter and the world they had trusted. When Lily first arrived at the retreat, she wasn't thrilled. She had barely spoken to her parents for days before they dropped her off, and the only thing she could think of was how to escape. But as the days passed, something began to change. At first, it was subtle. She started to speak more openly in the group sessions. The retreat counselors, with their calming voices and gentle encouragement, seemed to reach her in ways no one else had. And then, slowly, Lily began to share parts of herself that no one had ever seen before, not even her parents. Stories of things that had happened in her life, things that no one knew, things that made her pain, her anger, her confusion make sense. Her parents sat in shock as they learned details about their daughter's life that they had never imagined. But the shocking revelations didn't stop there. The more Lily shared, the more the other participants in the retreat began to open up as well. It was as if a hidden world was being uncovered, layer by layer. As days went by, something mysterious seemed to be happening. A shift, a change in the atmosphere of the retreat that left everyone there on edge. Staff members, who had always been so composed, began to show signs of nervousness, and some of the participants, even those who had initially seemed well-adjusted, started acting strangely. What was going on here? Was it the retreat itself? Or something darker, something buried deep within the place that was now starting to come to light? Lily's parents couldn't deny it. Their daughter had changed. But the question remained, was it for the better? Or had something inside of her been awakened that no one, not even Lily herself, could fully understand? As the days turned into weeks, they found themselves torn between hope and fear. Was this the breakthrough they had been waiting for? Or was it something much more dangerous? And just when they thought they were beginning to understand what was happening, Lily did something that took everyone by surprise. Something so unexpected that her parents were left questioning whether they could ever truly know their daughter again. What happened to Lily at that retreat would alter the course of her life, and theirs, forever. The answers that had seemed so close suddenly seemed impossible to reach. The truth was just beginning to unfold, but not in the way anyone expected. The secrets of the retreat were darker than anyone had ever imagined. Was Lily finally finding herself? Or was she being drawn into something far more sinister? And most importantly, what would happen when they all finally came face to face with the shocking truth? Stay tuned to find out what happens next, because this story is only getting started. Lily's parents hadn't planned on discovering this side of their daughter. For years, they'd been trying to understand her, trying to fix what they thought was broken. But as they sat in the dimly lit conference room at the retreat, listening to Lily recount moments from her life they'd never heard before, they realized how much they had missed. The stories she told weren't just about her rebellious streak. They were about trauma, about feelings of abandonment, and about years of keeping things hidden, not just from them, but from everyone. As Lily spoke, her voice trembled, yet there was a new strength behind her words. She spoke about her childhood, how despite growing up in a loving home, there were always things that felt off. How her parents, so wrapped up in their own struggles, hadn't seen her slowly pulling away. How every time they tried to fix her, they only pushed her further into herself. Her parents were blindsided. They had never realized the depth of her isolation or how disconnected she had felt for so long. The retreat, they learned, wasn't just a place for reflection. It was a place for confrontation. People didn't just talk about their problems. They had to face them. And for Lily, that meant opening old wounds that had never fully healed. But what disturbed them more wasn't just the pain she carried. It was the way she seemed to embrace it. It was as if the more she revealed, the more she became connected to the retreat's strange energy. As the days passed, Lily's behavior began to shift even further. She started to form strange bonds with the other participants, people who, on the surface, seemed to have their own set of issues. But there was something unsettling about their connection. They all seemed to feed off one another's darkness. The conversations during group therapy sessions grew increasingly intense, and there was a palpable tension in the air. Lily was no longer the quiet, rebellious teenager her parents had sent away. She had transformed into someone else, someone different, someone who no longer seemed to care about what anyone thought. Her parents began to feel that maybe they had made a mistake by sending her here. They were supposed to help her heal, not lose her to something they didn't understand. The counselors, who had initially seemed so supportive, were becoming more distant. They didn't answer questions the same way anymore. Their smiles seemed forced. When Lily's parents tried to speak with them privately, they were met with vague reassurances. Everything was fine. Lily was fine. But something in the air had shifted. It wasn't just the counselors. Other parents had started asking questions too. At first, they seemed to be ignoring the red flags, just like Lily's parents had. But soon enough, they began to whisper among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances. One parent had even pulled their child from the retreat halfway through. They hadn't said why, but the tension in the air told the rest of them that something wasn't right. One evening, as Lily's parents sat quietly in their room, they overheard a conversation in the hallway. It was between two staff members. They couldn't hear everything, but the fragments they caught made their blood run cold. "It's happening faster than we thought," one said. "She's already changing." The other replied, "We need to be careful. The more they open up, the more they attract it." They were talking about Lily. But what did they mean? What was happening to their daughter? And why was it happening so quickly? The next morning, everything changed. Lily came to breakfast with a new sense of confidence, a strange glint in her eyes. Her parents couldn't place it, but there was something unsettling about the way she spoke, the way she looked at them. She wasn't angry anymore. In fact, she seemed almost serene, too serene. Her behavior wasn't just different. It was as if she had become someone entirely new. When the family sat down with the retreat's head counselor later that day, the conversation took a darker turn. The counselor, usually calm and reassuring, now seemed increasingly nervous. He explained that Lily had made great strides. She was opening up in ways he hadn't anticipated. But there was something more he didn't tell them, something he danced around. The way he spoke was evasive. And when Lily's parents asked direct questions about what she was experiencing, he deflected, only offering vague comments about personal growth. Lily's parents weren't the only ones growing uneasy. The other families at the retreat started to notice the strange changes in their children too. It wasn't just the unsettling shift in their personalities. There was something else, a subtle, yet chilling, sense of unity. The kids who were once isolated from each other were now inseparable. They all seemed to understand each other, their words becoming cryptic, as if they were communicating on a level the adults couldn't access. It was as though they were part of something bigger, something dark. That night, Lily's parents decided to confront her. They found her sitting outside, staring at the stars, her expression vacant. When they approached her, she turned to face them. But it wasn't the same Lily they had sent away. This girl had changed. Her eyes were cold, distant, no longer the eyes of their daughter. They tried to talk to her, to make her understand that they were worried. But she only smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm fine, Dad," she said softly, her voice almost mechanical. "I'm where I'm meant to be." Lily's parents were terrified. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. But what could they do? The retreat was supposed to help, to heal. But instead, it seemed to be pulling her further away from them. That night, Lily didn't come back to their cabin. She didn't return until morning, when the retreat staff came to them with an urgent message. Lily had been involved in an incident during the night, a confrontation that had escalated with another participant. They wouldn't give details, but when they mentioned the word dangerous, it sent a chill down Lily's parents' spines. What was happening to their daughter? What was happening at the retreat? And how far had she really fallen into whatever this was? The answers were becoming darker and harder to understand with each passing day, and just as they thought they might finally get the truth, a shocking revelation came to light, a revelation that would change everything. But that is a story for another time. The next morning, as the sun rose over the retreat, everything seemed eerily quiet. Lily's parents couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. They had tried to reach her the night before, but she had been distant, almost unreachable. Now the retreat staff seemed unusually tense. It was clear that whatever had happened during the night was more than just a simple altercation. They kept mentioning that the situation had escalated, but no one would give them any details. Desperate for answers, Lily's parents demanded to speak with the retreat's director. They had reached their limit. They couldn't just sit back and let their daughter slip further away. The director, a tall, imposing man named Frank, was surprisingly calm when they finally cornered him in his office. But his eyes betrayed a sense of worry that only fueled their suspicions. "We understand your concerns," Frank began, his voice low and controlled. "But I need you to trust me. Lily is undergoing something transformative. This place isn't just about getting better. It's about understanding who we really are, what's inside us. And sometimes that can be unsettling." "But why did she get involved in a fight?" Lily's father, David, interrupted. "You said she was fine, that she was making progress. Why is she acting so strange? And why won't you tell us what's really going on?" Frank's face hardened for a moment, and then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not something that can be explained easily. The truth is, Lily is not the only one changing here. Everyone who comes to this retreat is here for a reason. And what you're seeing, what you're feeling is part of that process. We don't just heal here, we awaken. The words hung in the air like a warning, but Frank didn't elaborate further. Instead, he changed the subject abruptly. I think it's time you had a meeting with the other families. You're not the only ones questioning what's happening here. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface. That's when everything started to click for Lily's parents. They had seen the odd behavior in the other kids, the way they had started bonding in strange, almost unexplainable ways. The whispers they overheard, the mentions of awakening and the change. It's all made sense now. This retreat was not just a place for healing. It was a place for something far deeper, far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. As they sat with the other families later that afternoon, the truth finally came out. Frank explained that the retreat wasn't just a therapeutics center. It was, in fact, a place that believed in unlocking the hidden potential of the human mind, a power that some participants had called the awakening. It wasn't just about healing trauma. It was about confronting the darkness inside and tapping into it. The more a person embraced their deepest fears and desires, the stronger the connection became. And Lily had embraced it all. She had embraced the darkness, the power, the change. She wasn't the same girl her parents had sent away. She had become part of something much larger, a movement that ran deeper than anyone had understood. And now, the retreat staff feared she was one of the most advanced participants. She had gone too far into it, too fast. They were terrified of what she might do next. When Lily finally walked into the room, her presence was undeniable. Her eyes were different, piercing, intense. It wasn't just that she looked different. She felt different. It was as if her very being had shifted into something they couldn't recognize. And yet, she still looked like their daughter. The paradox was unnerving. Lily spoke calmly, as though nothing had happened. I'm better now. I'm finally free. This is who I'm meant to be. Her voice was steady, but it was no longer the voice of the girl they had once known. It was distant, detached, almost as if she was speaking from another world. Lily, what are you talking about? Her mother, Sarah, said, her voice trembling. This isn't you. Please come back to us. Lily's lips curled into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it. You can't understand. I don't need saving anymore. I've found something more. And with that, the room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Her parents, heartbroken, looked at each other, torn between fear and love. They wanted their daughter back. They wanted the girl they remembered, the one who had laughed with them and dreamed with them. But the person standing in front of them now was someone else, someone who had changed in ways they couldn't fathom. And maybe, just maybe, they never would. The truth hit them like a punch to the gut. The retreat hadn't healed Lily. It had changed her. It had opened doors in her mind that should never have been opened. Doors that she couldn't close again. Her parents could feel the shift in the air. The place was no longer a sanctuary. It was a dark force. And Lily had embraced it with open arms. As they left the retreat that evening, Lily's parents were left with a single, heartbreaking question. Could they ever get their daughter back? Or had she slipped too far into whatever this was to ever return? The retreat, the people, the strange power. It was all part of something much larger than they could comprehend. And just as they drove away from the mountains, looking back at the retreat's distant lights, they realized that this was just the beginning. Whatever was happening to Lily, it was far from over. The stakes had been raised, and the true battle for her soul was only just beginning.